Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon. And of course, it is that time of the year where Heavy Montreal is coming in August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean-Drapeau in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And this year we've got Slipknot headlining, Faith No More, Korn, and for those who like the hair metal, even though we don't like that name, but fans like me, we've got Lita Ford, Warrant, and Dokken. And of course, hey, always a great time. Joining me this week as guest is Lawrence Gowan of Styx. Of course, us Canadians know him as just Gowan from back in the 80s. And in the second part of the show, we've got JEFF SCOTT SOTO, who's got an incredible new album called Inside The Vertigo. And to talk with me about all of this is Whitesnake guitarist Joel Hoekstra. Good day, Joel, and welcome back.
Hey, how's it going, Mitch? Thanks for having me, man.
Good. Now, you know, you've also got a new album coming out with the Whitesnake guys called The Purple Album, and I've actually had a chance to hear it. Not once, not twice, probably about 6 times now. And, you know, hey, congratulations. That it sounds like excuse the language, like a motherfucker. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds huge.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, well, the vision was all David's, of course. And I began with the passing of John Lord. I'm sure David will fill you in when he's a guest on your show here eventually. But I think that led to him reaching out to Richie and just trying to thank him for just a wonderful beginning to his career. And I think they began to toy with the idea of maybe reworking these songs, and David had many worked up, and then they just weren't on the same page in terms, I think, of the vision for the project. And David thought, oh, well, that's a bummer. I've reworked some of these songs, and he was feeling very enthused. And his wife, Cindy, I think said, well, why don't you just do it with Whitesnake? And he thought, oh, yeah, well, I guess that's always doable. So, I mean, for me, it was really an honor to have a go at these great songs, these great proven songs, and get to play guitar with such a cool lineup on there. Tommy Aldridge, of course, and Reb Beach on guitar, and Michael Devin on bass, who's unbelievable, such a great bass player. So that just gave me like a lot of enthusiasm for the project as a whole, and we went after it and had a blast doing it, man. Really had a great time.
Yeah, and of course you've got a spring tour coming up, or midsummer tour coming up of the States.
Yeah, right now I think that the tour dates have been released starting late May and running through late July, and I think there's more to come yet, including the world throughout 2015 and possibly even 2016 in support of it. So things are looking good.
Yeah, it's really good, and I'm just really glad that I got to hear it because you know, I've been in and out of hospitals in the last little bit, and it gave me a chance to actually have something to look forward to and be positive. So I'm glad for that. But well, let's get over to Larry Gowan and Styx. They have a new DVD coming out soon called Live at the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas. They are also heading out on tour with DEFF LEPPARD and TESLA this summer. That is an incredible combination, don't you think?
What a great package. That's 3 killer bands. You can't really go wrong there, right?
No, not at all. And, you know, because they're going to be playing probably 75-minute sets, maybe Tesla a little bit less, you're essentially just going to get all the hits, one after the other. And
yeah, that sounds like a night of hits, and man, a lot of great playing going on in there too. Great musicianship, not just hit songs, but great players in all those bands. Frank Hammond with Tesla is just awesome.
Oh, yeah,
isn't he? What a great player. And of course, all the Styx guys. My gosh, that's Todd Zuckerman on drums is just something else, man.
Yeah, you know the last time I saw him, Gowan came up to a place in Quebec called L'Assomption, and they did a Gowan show from his, 80s hits and stuff. By the way, was Gowan big at all in the States as a solo artist?
Yeah, I had never heard of them, to be honest.
Really? Okay. But up here, top 10 records, Juno Awards, the whole thing. And
wow. Okay.
He came and did this solo show probably like 4 years ago, and they had the drummer, Styx's drummer back there. it was just an incredible evening of musicianship. It's fantastic stuff. Just before I move on to what else we talked about with Larry, quickly mention Def Leppard, before they go out on tour with Styx and TESLA, are playing some solo dates in Canada, and in Montreal, Ottawa, and London in May. A band called Trapper will be opening up, and that features a good friend of mine, Sean Kelly, who normally plays guitar with Nelly Furtado, but he is going to be playing with Trapper on those dates, and later on he'll be recording a new album with Lee Aaron. So there you go. Little shout out to
cool.
Yeah, a little shout out to Sean. I gotta say, without insulting anybody else, Sean is probably the nicest person that you could ever meet. I mean, he truly is.
Nicer than you? Nicer than you? That might be impossible.
No, yeah.
No, hey man, that's good. I always like to see good things happen to good people, so I'll take your word for it. Yeah. You seem like a pretty good judge on that.
Yeah, thank you. He's really good. Now, one more thing I guess we should shout out for you is you were on this Randy Rhoads tribute. You did the song "Killer Girls" with Ripper Owens, Rudy Sarzo, and Brett Chasen. Tell me a little bit about that.
Bob Kulick was kind enough to have me on board. Did a fantastic job producing this. There's some amazing players involved. Dweezil Zappa, Doug Aldrich, Tom Morello, George Lynch, Brad Gillis. So Brad was really the guy. Him and I were talking about the Randy Rhoads Remembered shows we've been doing. He told me Bob was doing this album, so that was kind of my pathway in. And I was lucky enough to get the song "Killer Girls," which was co-written by Randy's brother. And it's really kind of a good song to get on a tribute CD because the solo isn't as recognizable. And it was just kind of one where Randy's youthful spirit was just kind of shredding and going for it, quite frankly. So for me, that was an easier thing to try to redo than like, how do you redo Crazy Train? Do you just play the solo note for note, or do you try and change it up a little bit or a lot?
Yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you change it too much, you're like, oh, he can't handle it. And if you don't change, if you play it note for note,
bro.
He's a rip-off.
This Killer Girls track was just kind of like a real, very youthful sounding track where Randy just kind of let it go and like went for it. So I felt very lucky actually to get that one for the CD. Even though it's one of the lesser known songs, it gave me an opportunity to really just kind of have at it and play the way I play. And I felt, a little more like you say, I'm not in that position of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I felt like, hey, I can actually contribute. And I think Randy gave a lot to the hard rock guitar scene in terms of his influence. And this was just an opportunity for me to just pay my respects and pay tribute, if you will.
Yeah, and speaking of paying respects, during the interview with Lawrence Gowan, we obviously talk about the Def Leppard TESLA tour. We talk about the upcoming DVD and Blu-ray. But we also talk about two other topics. The McDermott House Canada, which is a foundation where their motto is serving those who serve. So it takes care of our veterans. And Gowan over there has a CD, a download called In Kilt Tonight, which is one of his live shows. And you can go over and donate and download it, the entire live show. And it's just a great thing that, if you're interested in Gowan, or if you just want to support the Canadian vets in this case, he does that. And then we talk about the Scarborough World Gala, which took place earlier in 2014 to raise money for the Scarborough Hospital and their cancer care program. And what's interesting about this is that they had the Duchess of York out for this gala, and it raised over $2 million for the cancer center. And in case you didn't know, Larry's wife Janice received chemotherapy at the Scarborough House back in 2012. So there was an incredibly personal connection to this charity and to this event. And it's not every day that you'll hear somebody open up about some of the personal struggles. And so I'm glad that Larry opened up about it. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say anything untoward here, or out of place. But there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wasn't in the know about that either until I kind of previewed the audio of your interview with him, and so I was very touched by that, and what a great guy. So I just obviously I wish him nothing but the best here moving forward. So
yeah, absolutely. And listen, I'm sure you understand as being a touring musician yourself, when you're on the road and you've got a family member going through that as he was, it's got to be incredibly difficult to tear yourself away, because when you have 100 dates, it's hard to just cancel a big tour like that. But it's also hard to leave your heart, or take your heart on the road and not have it at home. So, it really shows what Larry's made of, and I love Larry. He's one of the nicest guys. Another one of the nicest guys. I guess I only hang around with nice people, right?
That whole camp in particular, it's the Midwestern roots connected with your Canadian roots there, man, because Styx is really out of where I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, and so a lot of those guys, a lot of their crew, they're Midwestern guys that they take out with them, and they're just all great dudes, man.
Salt of the earth, as they say.
Yeah, great bunch of guys. No holier than thou attitude, no jive. I was going to say jive LA vibe going on, but not to knock. I love LA too, so
but you must
really
know those guys then, because Night Rangers toured with Styx, right? While you were in the band.
Yeah, we toured with them in 2009, and I think probably even some spot dates before that, like in 2008 when I was first playing with Night Rangers. So, but we got to spend a chunk of time on the road together, and great dudes, man, all the way across the board. And and Lawrence, I mean, look, dude, his track record in stepping into that band and making it the well-oiled machine, touring machine it's been here for this last era speaks for itself, man. Big shoes to fill with Dennis DeYoung. He's done it, and they've been a machine. So that says it all.
Yeah, incredible talent, and of course, if you don't know Larry's or Gowan's solo stuff under the Gowan name, Criminal Mind and all that stuff, check it out. Go find it on iTunes or YouTube or whatever. He was a top 10 artist in Canada in the 80s with all kinds of awards. Our Junos, which is the equivalent of your Grammys, he would win them. So great talent. So let's listen to Larry talking about Def Leppard, Styx, McDermott House, Scarborough, and everything else. Here is Lawrence Gowan. Let's start small and work our way to big, if that's a proper way to say it, and I don't think it is. But AXS-TV, you have a special coming up on March 15th, filmed at the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas.
Correct.
From last year's soundtrack of Summer Tour, which I happened to catch at the Blues Fest in Ottawa, even though the
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, great. Oh, good. So you saw a bit of it anyway, except you saw it in a torrential downpour.
In a torrential downpour and in a bit of a strange sway where instead of all the bands being on one stage, one guy played on the back, and while Foreigner was playing, Don Felder was playing at the same time, and when there was a quiet moment during Foreigner, you could hear Don's. It was very interesting, to say the least. But
I think he was trying to make that all the acts actually got to play because of the
rain,
because of the weather. I can't remember. Did all our video screens and all our stuff work that night? I can't recall.
I don't believe so, because I remember being very, very stripped back. I just remember basically band and audience. That's pretty much all I remember from that night. But,
I remember it was great from the stage, though. The audience was spectacular. I couldn't believe how resilient they were, But then, I've played outdoor in Ottawa in the past, and I've seen what people are willing to are willing to brave to get through it, So
music is a powerful thing.
It is. It was actually a great night for us, but I remember also our gear having to be shifted around and stuff because the rain was blowing in on the stage, and it's our crew's duty to make sure that we don't fry.
Right, which hey, in the rain it can certainly happen. So let's talk about this show on AXS-TV.
Yeah.
Was there any consideration as to why it had to be Las Vegas? Is it a compilation of a bunch of shows that tell me a little bit about what's going to be seen on AXS-TV.
Sure. I think originally we were going to film it in Los Angeles at the Greek. I think that was the venue we were going to do it at. And then suddenly, within about 3 weeks of the show, we realized, again, there was some unpredictability about a couple of things, and they realized the Orleans Arena provided, it was an indoor venue, and there were only a few of them on that tour, but indoor venue, and we had full control over the situation, and they were very amenable to having us shoot it there. So it changed venue to the Orleans Arena. And we played an extended show that night and added some extra stuff, and it really was another great way to document our progress as an entity. Styx, how we've grown with our live presentation at least over the last 16 years since I've been in the band.
Speaking of live presentation, because it has grown. What about albums? The last one, I guess, that is a full album would be Cyclorama back in 2003. Yeah. Then you have Big Bang Theory, which was sort of covers.
Cover record, yeah.
And then Regeneration Volume 1 and 2. You've been touring for 16 years. When do we hit the studio for something new?
You'd be surprised how often we actually do hit the studio, Mitch. It's there's new material that exists and that we've been anxiously wanting to put together into an album. The weird thing, I guess, the change in the dynamic of the music business has dictated that we play over 100 shows a year, and cover the globe as we can in that period of time. And there's such a wealth of material that there just isn't the same
urgency.
There isn't the same urgency. That's a good word for it. To put out new stuff all the time, even though we would love to. So we've been bandying around the notion of let's just start putting out singles again. I know, how about something like an EP, and then But I can tell you that we do have quite a bit of new material, and we are looking for the opportunity to finish recording it and to release it, and hopefully that'll happen within 12 months. But I can't say for sure because they just handed me the new itinerary just a few days ago, and I see I'm counting over 100 right now with shows coming up. So
yeah,
it's a tough balancing act in a lot of ways because we want to go back into the studio, but we also don't want to turn our back on 50 shows in order to do so, especially in light of the fact that the impact of live music right now is perhaps stronger than it's ever been, since it is the one remaining bastion of music that you cannot download. You can shoot all you want on your iPhone and your iPad and all that, but the YouTube experience of it is nothing like the actual physical. And, I even go as far as saying spiritual essence of being in the room. And I think I'm speaking to somebody that understands that, since, you're such a devoted concert goer, and you know that it's not overstating it really to say that it can have profound effects on people's lives. We've seen that now over the course of decades. And so it's not that pithy a statement to make, It's amazing to me. I went out and did in the last 5 years, I've been doing just a handful of Gowan shows
which I saw in L'Assomption, Quebec, and it was fantastic.
Ah, which one did you go to? The one at
L'Assomption, a little tiny place, and you had Styx's drummer along there for you. This probably was 2010,
11?
2011.
I think 11. I think that was 11. Yeah, actually that was 11 or maybe 12, but I'm going to think 11. And yes, of course you were at that one. That's where we first spoke.
Right. Right. Well,
that's right. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember if that was well, we did the little
we did a little interview before. Yeah. You know, by the way, you mentioned that music affects people's lives, and you also mentioned downloads. So I want to bring you back to something you did in 2013 for the McDermott House Canada, which is you know, for the soldiers, for the troops. And if you go to McDermottHouseCanada.org, there is a download button there where they can download an entire show you did with the money going to the
Sunnybrook Hospital.
Right. Why is that something that you got involved in? What's the connection to it? I mean, are you just being a nice guy, or is it your dad was there? Your mom? What's the story? Because it's absolutely fantastic, and I recommend everybody to go and pick that up.
Oh, thank you. I have to put most of, I mean, obviously the lion's share of credit for that obviously goes to John McDermott, because there are many little many little tentacles that connected me to wanting to do that. The first was that believe it or not, John and I are from the same neighborhood in Glasgow, Scotland. We were both born, and we both lived just a few blocks apart. And we met again in the 90s when his career was really starting to blossom with doing these traditional British songs. You know, a lot of them were kind of war songs. You know, and so we've had a kind of a good association between the two of us for a couple of decades now. And I would always try to play his Christmas show. We had about 14 of them in a row. And then when he told me about this McDermott House and renovating the Veterans Wing at Sunnybrook, well, I've lived long enough now and known enough people who've had sons or daughters who've had to go overseas, and you know, I've only known a couple that have actually come back, you know, terribly maimed.
Right.
But you know, and in addition to that, I had the experience in '96. I went over with a UN tour with a whole Quebec group, and we went to Bosnia and we went to Egypt and Israel, and so I did see firsthand, you know, war zone looks like. I wasn't in any kind of, I didn't see any conflict or any of that, any fighting, but I saw what the commitment was and what they were trying to accomplish, and you know, there's a military background to my own family. My dad was in World War II, so you know, it's really it's an all of the above from what you mentioned as the reasoning behind it. In addition to all of that, you know, he said, let's do it at the Glenn Gould Theater. Well, also in 96, I think it was October 96, I did a live solo record there called No Kilt Tonight. And so it was kind of a nice thing to go, well, it's like 18 years later, I'm getting to go back, or 17 years later, I'm getting to go back to that venue and do the same thing and do it for a good cause. And there are a lot of great reasons to do it. Also, in that year, I realized there were just so many Styx shows that was the one and only Gowan show I could do in 2013. So I'm really determined not to let a year go by where I don't do something in my solo incarnation. So there were a lot of motivating factors there, some personal and some a little more altruistic, I guess, that made me want to do it. And so that's why we did the In Kilt Tonight show.
Yeah, and again, you know, if folks haven't heard of it, there's a download button on there, and you can get the show, and it's a great cause. You mentioned a lot of Styx shows. You're doing headlining shows right now. You're doing the Carnival Live cruise shows in June, and you've got not Journey. Journey's also on that Carnival stuff, but not with you. But you've got Def Leppard and Tesla. So you know, when you think Def Leppard and Tesla, you sort of think, well, okay, they were part of that 80s hair metal, so-and-so. Styx wasn't. Tell me a little bit how the package came together and of course, what can fans expect?
Certainly. It came together mainly because when we toured with Def Leppard in, I think it was 2008, I think it was then.
2007. No?
Oh, 7. Okay, thank
Perhaps.
you. 2007. It was one of these tours that we just got along so well, and there was something about this iconic 70s act, Styx, playing with this iconic 80s act, Def Leppard, that covered an awful lot of the whole genre of classic rock, was kind of encapsulated in that pairing.
A lot of greatest hits.
Yeah, and the and the blending of audiences of from would be the diehard fans who've been with both acts for that long was a neat thing to observe. But then, of course, that's really the year, Mitch, when I started to notice, wait a minute, there's starting to be an awful lot of the audiences under 30 years of age and weren't even born when some of these records were made. Mm-hmm. That was the first year that I really took note of that it's like, this is not staying stagnant. That's the growing part of the audience. That's the part of the audience that's increasing more than anything. And then subsequent to each single year, up until the present now, on any given night, at least half the audience are under 30 years of age.
Sure.
If not more. And I'm amazed at the I'm amazed but not amazed at the same time at the far-reaching effects that classic rock has on people, and just how it stays with them and how they can discover it even if they weren't of that generation. So I kind of marvel at that. It's a fantastic thing to witness. So how did we come back together? Well, every year since then, we've been looking for, like, we got to tour again. Yeah, we got to do another tour again. And then finally it made sense this year after us, doing so many multi-act tours now, and lots of people are doing them. This just happens to be a great pairing that we experienced, and we wanted to revisit.
Yeah, it really is. And last year on the tour, once in a while, Tommy Shaw would show up on Don Felder's stage and back and forth. Do you think we'll be seeing any of that this year, where you'll come out and Pour Some Sugar on Me?
I would love to see that. I'd love to see that. At the same time, it's funny. It's fun, Phil. The last time we were out, Phil Collin taught me how to play that on the guitar. So, wow, wouldn't that be kind of fun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would.
Anyway, the reason that I wouldn't necessarily say that's in the cards for this tour is that Def Leppard's show, much like our show, it's really hard to wedge somebody into it. I mean, we got away with having Don Felder come up with us and do it mainly because we did a recorded version of Hotel California with him.
On that CD. Right.
Yeah, on that CD. And a lot of it was a seamless thing. And what it comes down to, actually, Mitch, is if it's a seamless thing that doesn't get in the way of the band's show, then I can see it happening. And that's with us with Felder. With Def Leppard, I'd say it's possible, but it's not going to be necessary for the enjoyment of the night. It'd just be kind of an ego boost more for us than for the audience. So we'll see.
Last year on that tour, I believe it was Walmart that had an exclusive CD, which of course, is there any kind of exclusive CD or some kind of compilation coming out with these three bands on it?
No, not that I know of. Having said that, I could show up on the first day of the tour and go, look at that.
Look at that CD.
Look at that.
May I ask you a question that's a little more serious, and if I'm out of line, just let me know. But TSH, the Scarborough Hospital.
Hospital, yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. That was just a slip.
That's great.
You were there with the Duchess of York in 2014 at a gala that helped raise over $2 million for the hospital cancer care program. Which, first of all, congratulations.
That seems an insane number, but yeah, they have a very good fundraising committee, and it worked out. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the hospital, and is it okay at all to talk about the experience your wife went through at the hospital?
It's okay. Yeah, it is fine. Okay. I mean, I normally in the past I was guarded about that kind of thing because I didn't want to. I don't want to put the spotlight there. You know what I mean? I don't want
I understand, and that's why if you tell me to shut up, I'll move along.
No. But I don't mind telling you, because issues are part of life, and they're part of everyone's life, whether you're in a rock band or if you're an astronaut or whatever you happen to be, or if you're a barista at Starbucks.
Yeah, and listen, my wife's father passed away in 2013 from cancer and ended up at a palliative care home. So a positive story, as is the case with Janice, is very encouraging to me.
Yes. Well, that's true, and I mean, we have, this was actually the second cancer that she's gone through in her life.
Correct.
And so she's successfully beaten it twice, and that's quite a thing. Mm-hmm. But it's also, and I don't mean this to diminish the impact of it, but cancer is not the death sentence, the instant death sentence that it was just a few decades ago. They've made tremendous strides in being able to contain and to prolong your life through that illness. And I mean, recently, John Hopkins, the research team came up with the unlikely conclusion that it's mostly just bad luck that causes people to get cancer.
Absolutely.
With all of the lifestyle things that you can do to ward it off, and they're important too, obviously, but just bad luck. And so it was a drag to see Jan have to go through it again. It was kind of horrible, but she was. Here's the good part of the story. Both times she's been one of those wise people that caught it early, and that really seems to be the key. She didn't she didn't shy away from it. She got over the initial shock of like, whoops, I feel a lump here. She got over that and just said, well, I gotta go do this, and because of that, she got it in stage 1, and was successful. It was lousy to have to see her go through the chemo, which is there's really no glory in that, and go through losing all her hair and et cetera, especially when she looked just absolutely fine when she went in, and I think that's where people can get caught in a little phase of denial, because she looked fine and she felt fine, but the tests were coming up that no, this needs to be addressed, and the sooner the better. So the great thing is this: it's amazing once it's behind you. Is it ever behind you? It's amazing. That was in 2012, and by 2013, when she was over it, we're looking back on like that seems like a long time ago now. It's funny how time can be can actually in some ways be your friend.
Yeah, it can be.
once you're past an experience like that. And then we wanted to do something for the hospital where she was treated, and so they asked me to play at this gala that they had
back in May.
Back in May last year, and they wanted Jan to be one of the speakers at it as a much like how you framed it, which is here's the successful case of cancer treatment because it can work, and it did work. So we were happy to be involved in that, and it was kind of a fun experience, especially in light of the fact that they raised so much money. We can't get over that, just how much they raised. But that just shows you how all-encompassing that disease is, and how it affects everyone's life at some point. Somebody in your family, or if not yourself, are going to have to stare that down, and hopefully you're going to triumph over it.
And if I can just circle it back to the whole Styx thing, here you are doing 100 shows a year, and you were doing them last year and in 2012. How does that affect you professionally? I mean, at some point, do you just say, listen, guys, I just got to go home. I can't do this. How did you get through that?
It does. It does affect you that way. There are times. Music is, let me see how I'm going to put this, Mitch. It's without shirking the duties of your day-to-day life.
Right.
there is something great to be said for being engaged with music every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was away for some of the treatments, you know, we recovered. We had other family members, and we had some good friends that were able to get us through that. And you know, we're in a slightly, one of the great advantages of technology are things like iChat and FaceTime and all that sort of thing.
Right.
It's amazing how you can much quicker bridge the distance by utilizing little technological things like that. And it really wasn't that great an imposition. It just meant that I had to take a few earlier flights home, or you know, if we had even, you know, one day off and go home for that day and then come back that night. So there are ways to navigate around that, and I'm not the only member of the band who's had to face that. I mean, you know, JY faces that daily because it's what his wife went through a few years ago, and so you got to kind of, in some ways, you got to suck it up and just. I think Queen have a great song about that called "The Show Must Go On."
Right.
I think that's the attitude you have to adopt.
Yeah, and anyway, I don't want to get you know, downer, but I just felt it was important to mention the Scarborough Hospital because
I really appreciate that. No, that's great.
You know, and especially to see the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, come out for a Canadian hospital. I mean, you know, she doesn't have to do that. So that was a very important event.
I guess it was, and I think, you know, it's funny. I've had 3 kind of brushes with, you know, British royalty over the course of my career, and generally, you know, they feel like they want to do something useful in life. That seems to be a common thing from those people. So it didn't really surprise me that much that she'd want to be involved in something like that, because it's a very uplifting thing, and it's a very it's a very satisfying thing when you see, you know, for whatever reason we have our ties to British royalty.
Well, you even did a song called "Healing Waters" as a tribute to Diana, Princess of Wales. Tell me a little bit about that song. That came out in '97, right?
Yeah, '97. Yeah.
Why did you pen a song to Diana?
Well, good question. It was originally a song. That song, "Healing Waters," was originally recorded for the Lost Brotherhood album.
Right.
Which now is 25 years ago this year.
Wow.
And it was dropped from that album because we felt we had one ballad too many.
Okay.
And that was the album that had Alex Lifeson on from Rush, and he really liked Healing Waters. He played such a great guitar solo on that song. And it was kind of, we were disappointed that was the song that was chosen to be left off that record. So it was sitting in the vault. And in '97, I was doing my greatest hits record, and I was adding a song to it, a couple of songs to it. When that car crash happened, and I had played in England just earlier that year. I'd been over there for a few months, and a DJ there that you know, was kind of championing my stuff said the day after Diana was killed, he called you know, through my cousin England. And said, you know, do you have anything you'd like to put on the air? And I just put it as a dedication to Diana. And so I thought of the song Dedication, but then it was my cousin that said, oh, wait a minute. Remember that song Healing Waters? If you look at the lyrics of that song, it kind of ties in well with her life.
Right.
So I went and dug it out of the vault, and we were in the studio anyway, as I said, doing the greatest hits record, and I got out of the vault and realized, you know, if I just changed this one line right here, it would really tie in with her life, you know? And so I changed one line. We put the multi-track up on the Studer, and I recorded that line. And then we did something that was at that time a brand new technology. There was that thing called the ISDN line. You probably know what that is. Now it's just now just known as pushing send on your computer.
That's right.
but back then, believe it or not, as recently as 1997, that was a brand new thing. And so Sony, which were the record company, they had that in the building, and they said, we can send it like instantly. It'll be there within minutes. And so we finished the song in the studio, sent it there, and the guy played it on the air, and it was like the most requested songs in Northern England and Liverpool, around that area for a whole week till the funeral happened, which is when Elton John did "Candle in the Wind," and that became the song of the event, most associated with that event. Right. However, the weird thing is that a year later, when they were opening Diana's memorial at all, I had a call came in from the management group. They said they'd received a call from Charles Spencer, and the Spencer family really liked that song "Healing Waters" and wanted to know if I would be on the bill for the show where they were opening Diana's memorial, at her home. So it was myself and Duran Duran and Sir Cliff Richard and Krista Burke and a couple of other great acts were on that show, and I got to play with the BBC National Symphony. We did "Healing Waters," and that was in 1998. And now for the really curious thing, on the show that day, Todd Zuckerman was playing with another, the drummer from Styx, and when he saw me there, he said, "Hey, you're the guy that played with us in Montreal."
That's right.
I said, "Yeah." He says, "I got your CD and everything." And shortly after that, he went back to America, and Styx had their big falling out. And when my name came up, Todd said, "I just saw the guy in England again. Why don't we get him?"
Yeah, Montreal's been good to you. Quebec has been good too.
Yeah, but yes, Quebec has been it's hard for me to describe how the connection between myself and Quebec has been nothing but positive from the very beginning of my career. And I mean, even before I made records, I used to go and play there. There was a club right by the Forum called the Mustache, and I had tremendous experiences there. There was a club called the Maples. Yeah. And even, I knew that there was a great there's just an easy affinity between the audiences in Quebec and the kind of prog rock music that I was doing even at that time. And I was so happy when Strange Animal came out, and it was Quebec that was the first place that was successful. And that's also something that I have in common with Styx, because the first number one they ever had it was in Quebec with Sweet Madame Blue, and the first number one I ever had was in Quebec with A Criminal Mind.
Yeah, and of course Quebec is where Gowan and Styx sort of met and became. That's
where we met. Yeah, Montreal is. It's my own private little musical mecca, because really good things happen. Good things happen whenever I play there.
And you've even done a couple of French songs for the local market, Harmoniums pour un instant and Stephanie.
Yeah.
There's definitely which is, by the way, sort of a shame that the Styx Def Leppard tour is not coming to Montreal, but I'm sure.
Oh man.
I'm sure folks will drive out to Toronto and make sure to catch it. Now we've done half an hour, so let me just finish with this then, because I could talk to you for another 6 hours. 1985, you were a Juno Award winner for Best Video for Criminal Mind. For Americans, that's the Canadian version of the Grammys. What did winning that award mean to you as a person, but also to you as a career?
Well,
if anything,
because if you think back on it, 1985
was MTV era, was Much Music era.
We're right in the middle of the MTV Much Music Blues era, where if your song wasn't on television, it wasn't being heard. That's really
you didn't exist.
You didn't exist. That's really what it was. And in that year, I had two videos in that category, A Criminal Mind and Strange Animal. And I remember CBS, you know, that my record
Strange
company
Animal
then
won also. It won for Best Album Graphics.
Correct, you did. It won for that. You're right. You did win for that.
I do my research, you know.
Man, do you ever? But Strange Animal, the video was up against A Criminal Mind, the video, you know, and
so you beat
I remember thinking, oh, you know, the record company was saying that's going to split the vote. Unfortunately, you know, that's going to split the vote, and probably you might not get it. And you know, it's, you know, you can say, it's easy to say, well, you don't do this type of thing for awards, and that's true enough. But you do, when you really think something is strong and when you feel it's made an impact, if there happens to be an award connected to it, it's a great way to have that stamped as an official stamp of approval that you know, among your peers as well as among the public, it's been recognized. And so. No, I felt that, and I don't want this to sound immodest, but the team of people that were involved in putting that video together were so dedicated to it and so determined to take a song that really, by all little test polls they'd done, probably wouldn't have gotten on the radio, mainly because of the subject matter, and they embraced. You're taking that song and making it palpable through the medium of that video, through the medium of television.
Right.
And because of that group effort, you know, we
it was Rob Quarterly.
It was Rob Quarterly. I wrote up the storyboard and kept, you know, going back and forth between myself and the record company to see, is this going to be able to fly on TV? Is this going to, because that was the big fear as well, which was, you could get your stuff could get pulled from the air immediately if they saw one shot that wasn't, you know, up to the standard of what they were, whatever the arbitrary standard was. Now seems ridiculous when you see what's in videos today and how they have such an open field as to what you can put in a video, and I love that. But at that time, you could one slip that could get you pulled off the air, and I remember, believe it or not, and it sounds really light, but if you remember the scene in A Criminal Mind where the judge points down and he's laughing, he points down from the bench.
Absolutely.
And he okay, so that scene, I remember there was a long meeting. It seems so weird to say now, where there were some guys saying that justice laughing at the criminal is going to get it pulled off the air. That it's not going to make it to air if we leave that clip in.
Wow, what a different world.
I know we're in a different world now, but I remember others saying, no, it's obviously there's a satirical element that's been added to this, and it's obvious that this is not a portrayal, but a send up of the whole concept of it. But you could see it with two different sets of eyes. You know, you could see it. I spoken to guys who were kids when it came out, who were 8 or 9 years old, who would say to me, was the scariest thing I ever saw as a kid was that, and the guys getting the goop dumped on them as they went down the conveyor belt. And it's funny to hear perspective when I'm thinking, well, at the time we just thought that was a kind of a funny send up of the whole idea of the justice system and how you know and how it or how it functions. And
well, you know, I was 17 at the time, and I remember seeing the video over and over and over again, and I just thought it was funny or and not to sound insulting, maybe goofy. It was kind of a goofy video.
Oh, exactly, because you were 17,
right?
And so you'd filtered enough things in your life, and there was definitely a goofy element to it, but at the same time, there's a bit of an insane clown laughing behind that video. You know, there's some of that in there. And so, so back to the Juno Award. Yeah, boy, it really meant a lot to me because that was probably the most competitive field that existed in that year. And I remember Tina Turner sitting beside me, and when I won it, I just remember turning and seeing her clapping and kind of looking at it on the screen. And wow, this is great. Tina Turner's clapping for me.
Yeah. Good old Tina. I wonder what she had with Canadians back then, having done "It's Only Love" with Bryan Adams and then sitting at the Junos. But you know that Rob Quarterly, if you look back as a Canadian, I mean, doesn't really matter by Platinum Blonde, Sunglasses at Night by Corey Hart. Big Money by Rush. God, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. I mean, every single song that marked Canada through the 80s, he did the video for.
Yeah, he
I mean, you know, Rock You by Helix. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I know. No, he was the man. He was the man. And I mean, I remember when they said Rob Corley was going to do this video with you, I thought, you know, oh my God, this is great. You know, because he really had his finger on the pulse of it. And I remember what I loved about Rob was he wasn't the idea at all. He always saw, oh yeah, there's a way that we could do that. Oh yeah, there's a way we could do that. You know, so he was very encouraging and great to work with, and he really owned the field as you point out for a number of years.
I mean, if people don't know him, look him up on Wikipedia, and you'll see that every video basically from 1980 to 1992 were smash hits. There's not a single video he worked on that was just some kind of nothing. It was.
No, he had his finger on the pulse of what it took. That's for sure. Great.
He absolutely did. Larry, you know, listen, I could do this for hours and hours, but 40 minutes again. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Always fun to talk to you, Mitch. I tell you, it's I am lamenting the fact that this tour is not coming to Quebec. It's too bad. But on the other hand, I get to play Toronto for the first time in I don't know how many years, maybe 10. So that's very odd, but we're getting to do it finally, and so at least I've got that coming up.
Yeah, and you know, you've got your work cut out for you. TESLA is incredible live.
I know.
They are going to make you work, or they will embarrass you. I mean, they are that good.
And, they're a great band. Played with them before.
And Def Leppard, come on. Def Leppard they're going to do 20 songs that were in the top 10. So it's going to be a fun night. And,
it will be, yeah.
Definitely going to have to make the drive to Toronto to see this.
Please do.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
All right, Mitch. Great to talk to you.
You too. Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Bye. Pleasure.
Bye-bye. There you have it, folks. My interview with Lawrence Gowan of Styx. That tour, I'm telling you, Joel, with Def Leppard, Styx, and TESLA is one of the tours of the summer. It's a hit fest.
That should be a fantastic night, man. Absolutely. I love all those bands.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, let me remind you that the podcast is brought to you today by Heavy Montreal, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean Drapeau in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Slipknot, Faith No More, Lamb of God, and here's a band for you. Iggy Pop is going to be playing that. Are you an Iggy fan, or are you one of those that go, uh-oh, what is that?
Well, I'm really not, bro. I mean, that's not my scene, to be honest with you. I grew up really just kind of, my parents were classical musicians, so I was always very much about who could play and who couldn't play. I wasn't about who was cool and who had the attitude growing up, which I get it. I mean, now that I'm older and life is not a talent contest, I get the appeal, but to be honest, I was never the biggest Iggy Pop guy.
Yeah, you know, for me, I'm not if Iggy had a show in Montreal, I probably wouldn't go, but as part of the festival, I'm very much looking forward to it. I just know that growing up in the 80s, there was a video that he had called I'm Bored. And in the song, he'd say, I'm bored. I'm the chairman of the board. And that sort of got me through my 80s. I just thought that was the funniest thing back then. Of course, you know, that's 15-year-old humor, right? Going around, I'm bored. I'm the chairman of the board, right? But that was funny. Anyway, and of course, Heavy Montreal has Lita Ford, Warrant, and Dokken. I love saying those names because I'm glad that we see some 80s rock on there. Speaking of 80s rock, head over to melodicrock.com. You know, Andrew McNeese does a great job over there, and his Melodic Rock Records have 3 new albums coming out this month. Tonk, the album is called Ruby Voodoo. Empires of Eden, the album is called Architect of Hope. And of course, We have Terra Nova with Reinvent Yourself. So just head over to melodicrock.com and have a look at the site, and help support the site, because that site certainly supports what I do, and it supports a lot of the bands, like Night Ranger that you've been in, and Whitesnake. He supports our scene, so we got to give back, right?
Yeah, Andrew's amazing, man. You look at the complexity of that site, and then you realize that he's running that day round in addition to setting up his own festivals and putting out these records,
yeah,
writing all these reviews, and kudos to him. He's a great cat too. And I love Andrew, and very much appreciate everything he's done for our scene.
Absolutely, and he's been doing it since like the late '90s or something. I mean, he's been at this for like 20 years, just plugging away on that site, and it's just a great site. If you want to know about, in fact, our next guest, Jeff Scott Soto, it is because of Andrew plugging away and mentioning it over the last 20 years that I even had a clue as to who Jeff Scott was. And I'm glad that I discovered it thanks to Andrew and Melodic Rock. And of course, Journey had Jeff Scott as a singer for a little bit, which we talk about in our interview, by the way. And Andrew made that happen. He facilitated that connection. And, Jeff Scott, new album, Inside the Vertigo. Now, you also know Jeff, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jeff and I, well, we both work with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So while he tours with the West Band and I tour with the East, we do see each other in Omaha every year, where we rehearse for a few weeks, 2-3 weeks each year. So that's where we got to know each other. And like his previous album, Damage Control, he actually asked me if I was interested in writing with him, and I ended up writing the single, Look Inside Your Heart, with him, and being in the video. And then also I co-wrote and played on another one of the songs that they made, Frontiers put out a video for, called Never Ending War.
Oh, that's right.
That people can check out. And same deal this time around with S.O.T.O. Now that he's working more with the Fed band, the songs that I co-wrote with him and played on are going to be featured somewhere down the road in sort of like a special edition, or maybe an individual release on Jeff's part. But since things are a little more band focused this time around, there's 2 cool tunes that I co-wrote and played on for this release as well. And so yeah, him and I are tight, and I think he's one of the best singers and one of the best guys in the biz, man, for sure.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting with the Inside the Vertigo is that he stepped out from his comfort zone of sort of melodic rock, which he's been doing with Wet, and of course that little time in Journey and some of and he's gone like, I wouldn't say full metal, but he's certainly turned up the amps on this one, right?
Yeah, he's definitely got some balls happening on this record, man. It's heavy, and kudos to him for doing what he feels, and hopefully he'll find some new fans in it, and hopefully most of his previous fans will embrace it. I think it's cool as hell. I checked it all out, and he's got some great guys in the band. Jorge Salon is awesome guitar player, and my buddy Dave Z is playing bass with him on it from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and he's killer. So I mean, there's great. There's great guys playing with him out there, and I wish nothing but the best for Jeff, dude. I mean, he's really, if everybody in the business were like him, it'd just be truly nirvana, this business. It's awesome.
Isn't that great? We're just talking about all the great people we know, from Sean Kelly to Jeff to Andrew. It's sort of the love fest tonight, I think, on this podcast.
The love episode, dude.
It's the love episode. So there you go. So in fact, why don't we listen to Jeff Scott Soto talk about this, and talk about his time in Journey, which is always an interesting story. Here is Jeff Scott Soto, new album, Inside the Vertigo.
How are you, man?
Good. So
well, you're talking to half of a Jeff Scott Soto. I got pretty hoarse from the past. We did 9 shows in 10 days to end the tour out here in Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, we're fried. We're all fried at the end.
Well, let's start right there then. How do you do it? Because, when you're the guitarist in a band, you can sort of have an off night and miss a note. Or if you're the drummer, you can always go get a massage if your shoulder's hurting. If your voice is blown, what the hell do you do?
Well, you know what? That's when all those regrets come in, that I actually should have played guitar a little more, or studied a little harder to try and be a better musician. Because, man, it's the singer gets a lot of the glory, and there's a lot that comes on our shoulders, the responsibility. But to be honest, when you get older and you know you still got to be that responsible guy and you want to deliver every night, these tours really get boring, you know, because it basically is sing, go to sleep, shut up all day, and warm up and sing again. It's not like the old days where you're 25, you could drink with the boys all night, bounce back the next day, or if you have a bad night, all you need is a night off. These days, it truly is. It's sleep, sing, and wake up, and it's like a shampoo bottle. Repeat.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. And you know what's funny is you'll meet a lead singer on the road at the hotel or backstage, and he won't be talking, and then people go, "Oh, he's so rude. He can't even talk to us." It's like no, he's saving his voice. That's the gig, you know. But people don't seem to always understand that, right?
That and you know what? I can't say I'm one of those guys. Unfortunately, I kind of go against my own grain where I should be resting. I'm a blabbermouth and I'm yapping with the band and I'm greeting fans and talking to techs during sound check and all that stuff. So I kind of don't follow my own rule of thumb. But on the other hand, I found that if I do shut up all day, it takes me longer to kind of get ready for the process. It's like warm up 101 and try to get it there. If I'm kind of talking and getting through the day like I normally would a normal day, I'm already warmed up before showtime. So it kind of works for me as opposed to against me.
Works for you. So, you know, before I dig into your past, and you have an incredible past, one project that you've done recently, WET Wet with the guys from Eclipse and Work of Art. Brilliant album. Rise Up is fantastic. I mean,
thank you, sir. Yeah, I mean, it sure is one of the prouder moments in my life, you know, in my career, that we could even at this point come up with something that was so unique and still sounds like a classic rock album, but yet it's something that was released just a few years ago.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, you know, what I do with albums is I'll dump them into iTunes, and then I'll pick off the songs I like and throw them into a playlist, and I'll make a playlist that has a S.O.T.O song and a Foreigner song and a whatever song. And that Rise Up album, I had to dump the whole bloody thing in. There wasn't a weak spot on, and I had the Japanese version with the extras track. There just wasn't a weak song on that album.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Japanese tracks. It's strange at this day and age when the music's actually not as popular as it used to be in Japan, and it's still so necessary to have that Japanese bonus track. God, if I had $1 for every time I got a complaint why that track wasn't on the main album, why is it only available in Japan? You know, it's strange that that rule of thumb is still out there. But it's still that necessary evil, especially having to choose which one you're going to dump from the album that's going to end up as a bonus track. On this particular case, on the S.O.T.O album, and even on the Wet album, those songs should have been on the main releases, but you can only have so many, and when the congregation decides what's going to be the final album, you kind of have to go with it.
Yeah. So let's talk S.O.T.O. Listen, you have been known to be the voice of melodic rock over the last 10 years. Wet is certainly melodic rock. Your time was Journey, of course, is melodic rock, etc. This one, you went a little more metal. I mean, you've got Gus G, who, of course, played recently with Ozzy Osbourne and his own band, Al Pitrelli, Jason Bieler, Mike Orlando. You're not getting these fluffy guitar players. You're getting guys who know how to do metal. So what was it in you that said, okay, I need to show this side of me?
Well, that was actually on purpose. I wanted to actually kind of head this direction on Damage Control, but unfortunately, Frontiers Records didn't see eye to eye with me on going so heavy. And Damage Control was considerably heavy in the sense of my solo albums, but of course, I had to even it out, balance it out with some of the more lighter side of the lighter fare of JSS. And this time around, I kind of pre-warned them that I was going to go this direction and it was going to take it even heavier. And sad to say that kind of broke up the family there.
Sure. Frontiers is a melodic rock label. That's what they do.
Yeah, but no, they do metal albums. I mean, when you think they do the things with Russell Allen and Jorn Landy, and they do some metal albums, but because they invested so much in me going the melodic rock avenue, I guess they just felt this is suicide to actually put this album out. Whereas I thought the opposite. I thought if I'm doing albums like Wet, why am I doing other melodic rock albums and competing against myself?
Right.
Especially because I come from a heavy metal background. I missed this side of what I actually started in this business doing.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to get back to it. I've been doing a lot of festivals lately with my solo band, and I kind of feel like we don't fit in. Where I'm having to fit in things like I'll Be Waiting and Eyes of Love, and we're going up against bands like Sepultura and Slayer, and I'm like, I'm either not going to get booked here anymore, or they're going to start throwing bottles of piss at us.
Right.
So
which they do in Europe,
especially in Europe. So I miss that energy. I miss that aggressive side of things, and that's exactly where I was going to head with this album. You know, do or die. And as Frontiers basically gave me the walking papers that they weren't interested in doing it with me, I was able to seek out a great label like Your Music and Needle to put it out with me.
Yeah. So let's talk about this competition. Wet, of course, had the first album, then Rise Up, and then one live in Stockholm, which came out in 2014. Is that something then that is still an ongoing project, and that's why you'd be in competition with yourself, or is that band finished?
Well, we did the live thing because we'd already done the second album, right. And to be honest with you, we were only gonna, when I came out to Sweden to work with the guys, it was only to shoot a couple videos for the album. Right. It was only by chance that they said, well, we're here, we should just do a show and have some fun together. And then when that got leaked out to Frontiers, they said, can you do us a favor and film it, and maybe we can release it as a live DVD. So it kind of all just snowballed by accident, just by chance that we were going to jam together, to do a show and jam together. There was no real clear cut plan that we were going to actually this was the plan. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Do this. It just kind of happened the way it did.
But will it continue to happen?
At the moment, I have to say it's on hiatus.
Okay.
What's the term they use? It's on indefinite hiatus, I guess.
Okay.
Because if the only way I'm going to be able to sell S.O.T.O as a real band, and it's not a solo project, it's not just an experiment. S.O.T.O is my life right now. I'm committing and throwing everything into it. And the only way for people to take it seriously is for me to put everything else aside and start turning things down and just focus on S.O.T.O.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. You've been associated with Yngwie Malmsteen, Talisman, Journey, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Takara, Human Clay, Axel Brule. Why suddenly at this point in your career is it going to be the Jeff Scott Soto band? Why Soto all of a sudden?
It was the most sensible way to do it as a band, to sell it and brand it as a band, because if I threw in yet another name into the mix, it's just going to be lumped in with all the other bands or projects or one-offs or whatever you want to call it. Because this album started as a solo album, it started sounding too much like a band album. It didn't sound like a solo album any further. The band were more involved with me in the writing and in the process of getting it done. With that being said, because the manager I was working with at the time said, I'm not going to be able to sell this and find you a deal based on it being a solo album. It's Jeff Scott Soto is not going to fly with this sound. Okay. So you're going to have to give me a band name. And to be quite honest with you, with the long laundry list of band names you already have on the Europe register, my suggestion is you just take your last name, and everybody's going to brand it as Soto, Jeff Scott Soto. No matter how you slice it, they're going to still see it as your thing, but I can sell it as a band. I can move this as a unit as opposed to a single guy doing music like this.
So then what?
It made sense to me. And as I said, I didn't have to now throw in another name to Wet and Talisman and just keep dropping more names and titles of things that are just going to make me look like I'm a vocal whore.
Right. So then what is the game plan? Because this is the first album, and listen, it's a fantastic album.
Thank you so much.
It's dark, it's metal. The song "The Fall." Right away, I put it into one of my first playlists that I've made since I got it. It's a great track.
Awesome.
What is the plan for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Do you just tour on this for the next 2 years and hope for the best? Do you get back in the studio in September and say, okay, let's follow up real quick while we have some heat? What do you do?
You kind of just answered the question yourself.
Right.
I'm actually in Hamburg right now. I just came from a great meeting with Air Music. I met with the the heads of the company, and we had a great little powwow of exactly what's to come in the near future. I've got management going to get together with them and start piecing things together, and exactly that. We're looking at festivals. We're looking at a possible package tour.
Okay.
Europe, South America. Now the album's going to be out in the U.S. Excuse my croakiness.
I know.
The album will be out in the U.S. in late April. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of things happening with the building of this band and this album. So in the meantime, as you just even mentioned, why stop? I'm going to keep striking while the iron is hot. While we're working on this one, I'm already going to start working on the second one because I want to be able to follow it up. I want to be able to hit more festivals and do more dates next year. We kind of missed the boat on a lot of the festivals this year because the album came out in January. And a lot of the festival artists or acts are booked like the end of the year prior to the following year's events. So we're missing a lot of the boats this year, but next year we're going to be contenders for it. And I think it'll be best to have another album to back that up as well. So I'm looking at probably getting back in this studio like September, October, knocking this thing out. God willing that we come up with the strong enough material and have it ready for early next year, just in time to just tour our asses off next year.
Musically, do you want to stay in this harder edge, or at some point you go back to melodic rock, or is it an open book, whatever? Listen, we'll just put the 10 best songs we have regardless. What's the plan there?
For this band, it's got to have its genre, its direction, and its own sound.
Okay.
And I've established that with this first album.
Yes.
I would never put S.O.T.O, the band, into the melodic rock format. Jeff Scott Soto, I can do virtually anything I want with just my name because of the background I have.
Right.
The Jeff Scott Soto albums kind of fall into the category of hard rock and melodic rock, but Soto itself will be branded and stick with the genre of a heavy modern rock band, and I want to take it to the next level with it. I want to get heavier. I want to get more experimental with it, but for the most part, it's going to have this genre, this brand.
It's going to have balls, basically. It's going to have these.
Yeah.
There you go.
Say the least. But yeah, it's exactly that. I don't want to confuse the audience, especially in that I'm trying to build a new audience for this band. I'm going to have a handful of the people that have been following my career through the years, through the decades. There's going to be a few that drop off. They're not going to like or even accept this direction. But along the way, I'm sure, and I'm very positive, I'm going to pick up a lot of people who don't even know who I am. And for those people, I owe it to them and the longtime followers to just follow up with the sound the way it's being presented.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Now, I want to ask you about your journey days, but before I get there, I have to, because I'm Canadian. Back in 1990, you came up to Canada and did some background vocals for a band called Glass Tiger on an album called Simple Mission.
We didn't do it in Canada.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Alan in L.A.
Yeah, in L.A.
So now I speak to Alan Frew all the time. You know, I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. He's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and we tease each other mercilessly.
Of course, you have to.
Well, especially this year that the Leafs suck so much and the Habs are number one in the East. But hey,
who's counting, right?
Not everybody knows hockey, but tell me about working with Alan Frew and working with Glass Tiger. Just out of curiosity, how did that come about, and what was that like?
Well, I was a huge fan of theirs, like many of us were back in those days.
Sure, video was all over MTV.
I'm trying to remember who the producer was for that album. I don't think was it Tom Worman, the one that I sang on.
It was Tom Worman along with Jim Valance, Jim Crean, and Sam Reed.
Well, that's where that came from because the same way as I got the Rockstar Steel Dragon thing.
Mm-hmm.
I met Tom Worman in '91, I believe it was, when I sang backgrounds on Stripers Against the Law album.
Right.
And anybody who knows or works with Tom Worman, if he finds somebody that does what he needs to do in the studio and does it well and does it with proficiently, basically, he latches on. He had a couple singers that he used for all his '80s albums, from Poison to Motley Crue, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess along the way they kind of fell out or they weren't available anymore. when I worked with him on the Striper album, I became his go-to guy. I worked on every album that he produced. I sang on every album that he produced from that point until he retired. And then even when they pulled him out of retirement for the Rockstar soundtrack, that's where he remembered me, and he always said, "Someday I want to work with you where you're actually singing lead." And he held up to his end of the bargain, and he brought me in for the Steel Dragon thing.
Yeah, and Tom's great. And for folks who don't know, Tom did pretty much every album.
Oh my
Motley
God.
Crue's but
ridiculous. Since the 70s, he's just been so successful as a producer, and then at some point he just got sick of the game, and he bought a bed and breakfast.
That's right.
And just disappeared.
Out in the Berks
God
here.
bless him.
And I gotta say, I actually went over and stayed at the bed and breakfast out in Massachusetts. It's a wonderful place, and what's great about it is when you walk in there, you see all the gold and platinum records. I recommend it for folks who haven't gone out or haven't done it. It's the Stoneover Farm breakfast.
But Tom's produced some of my favorite albums through history, and it was an absolute pleasure to be able to work with him and to say that I work with him and to be part of his legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we wrap this up, Journey. Careful. Yeah, I know, but we have to. Steve Augeri was having publicly they said was having some vocal issues, and they needed to bring in a replacement. You came in. I saw a show with you at the Saratoga, the SPAC in Saratoga Springs, New York.
I remember that.
It was a great performance. Listen, Journey's always good, so we have to give them that.
One thing I remember about that show on the side of the stage was Joey Belladonna from Anthrax.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit. First of all, how do you get the gig? How is it being in Journey? Because Neil Schon he's an icon. Like it or not, he's an icon.
Well, we rewind back to 2004.
Right.
I guess it was the end of 2003 when Van Halen got back together. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was 2003 where Van Halen were announcing they were getting back together with Sammy, and
that worked out so well.
Yeah, well, Neil lost Sammy to the Van Halen reunion because they were working on a new band called Planet Us at the time.
Correct.
Neil had a bunch of material, and he had a lot of time in his hands that he wanted to utilize this material with, but he didn't have a singer anymore. Fast forward, he called our good buddy Andrew McNeese.
Right, over at melodicrock.com.
Yep, and because he's such an avid reader there, he's always reading about what's going on with Journey and what other things that are happening. My name was always popping up left, right, and center. And so he actually gave Andrew a call and said, "Who is this Jeff Scott Soto guy? And why do you praise him so much? Why do I see his name all over the place?" And Andrew he went into Andrew mode and basically sold some beachfront property in Arizona to Neil Schon about me.
Right.
And Neil was intrigued. He said, "I want to hook up with him and he told him about the whole Planet Us thing. And from that, I got a call from Andrew saying, "Hey, man, hope you don't mind, but I gave Neil Schon your number. He's going to be calling you probably in the next couple hours." I hope you don't mind. Are you kidding me? Anybody who knows me knows that I'm an avid Steve Perry Journey fanatic. It's such a huge influence and inspiration growing up. And so to me, it was just an honor to say hello to the man. And we talked on the phone for a couple hours. We met a few days later at the NAMM show. We jammed together, and that was the beginning of Soul Circus.
Right.
So from Soul Circus, we carried on. We did the first album, or the first version of the album, with Dean, and then we moved forward with Virgil Donati. Now we're going into 2005 territory where we did the short tour. We did 3 weeks in the U.S., 3 weeks in Europe, and then Neil had to return for a long Journey tour, which obviously was the culprit to Augeri going down.
Right. Yeah. And then
from that,
right, exactly.
They realized they had. Sorry.
Then you come in.
Realized that they had about 6 months of touring with Def Leppard, and Augeri's voice was actually progressively getting worse. They knew there was a lot on the line, a lot to lose. So they just called me
to the point where, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were actually piping in the vocals, and he was sort of just standing there lip syncing. There wasn't actually any live vocals for a few of those shows. Is that
I have no evidence of that. I heard all the rumors. I heard we never discussed that. I didn't discuss that once with the guys because, to be honest, I didn't want to know if any of that was going on. I didn't want to be part of it. As long as I don't have this information, I can't lie about it, and I can't tell anybody about it.
Right.
So
and let's leave it at that. It was the hot rumor. Nobody's proven otherwise.
Right. Exactly. And to be fair, even if anybody had to do that, it's all about you have to realize that the business side of things they come into play a lot more than the actual physical side of things. And many have probably had to do that in history, but unfortunately that's just the evil side of the business.
Right.
Anyways, fast forwarding, I proved myself, I guess. I stayed with the Fold to the point where they brought me on as their permanent singer. And then all of a sudden I was an equal member and I was part of the Fold. And that lasted for a good 5 months before the rug was just kind of pulled from under me. And to this day, I still don't really have any reasons or any fair reasoning aside of the fact that they just had a change of heart. And I think it's a little more involved than that. But unfortunately, I'm not privy to that information. I'm sure there's one or two members of the band that are. And 8 years later, I still don't know what those reasons are.
Yeah, and so let's not focus on the negative. Let's focus on the fact that you got to sing for Journey for 5 months. I mean, I haven't.
11 months.
11 months, sorry. I haven't. That must have been a thrill, just having been a fan growing up, and business aside and personalities aside, those moments on the stage must still be good memories for you.
Yeah, and you know what? They were amazing memories. When I reflect now of where I am in my life, and even a few years ago, I probably would have walked away from it by now, because as much as it's a great gig, it would have become just a money thing. And if I'm just going to do things for the money, then I'm in the wrong business. I got into this business because of the art, because of being able to express myself and do things that I want to do with my music and with my voice. If I have to live out the rest of my career doing somebody else's legacy, to me, it'd be like being in a cover band. And that's just not me. It's not for me. And I would want to do it, but also be able to do my own thing. And I don't think I could have both being with that band.
I agree. And of course, that brings us back to Inside the Vertigo. For anybody listening, it's really an album that you should check out. It's dark, it's heavy, and the cast and characters of guitarists on there just alone is worth checking out. Because, by the way, how did you get all those guys? How did you contact Gus and Al and...
Well, yeah, it's like I said, the idea started as a solo album, and because I wanted to have certain characteristics of the album the way they were supposed to be, I went to the guys that I knew would be able to bring it to me. The Gus thing happened because I collaborated on a song with him on his first solo album.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of funny because he's normally from the really heavy side of the fence, and my album's been the more melodic side. His solo album was more hard rock and melodic. And here I'm doing this really heavy album. So we kind of traded shoes on that one.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Jeff, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Mitch.
There you have it, folks. My interview with Jeff Scott Soto. New band is Soto. The album is Inside the Vertigo. I do encourage you to check that out. And of course, I encourage you to check out Heavy Montreal, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th. At Parc Jean Drapeau in beautiful downtown Montreal. We mentioned some of the other bands, but we've also got Marky Ramone, Testament, Meshuggah, and I'll just keep mentioning it every time. Warrant, Doc, and Lita Ford, because it's important to mention Warrant, Doc, and Lita Ford. That's just the way I roll. I have to mention those bands. And, of course, don't forget to head over to melodicrock.com. Check out Tonk, Architects, Empire of Eden, and Terra Nova. Melodic Rock Records. There you go. So, Joel, that was an interesting episode. Thank you for co-hosting.
Yeah, you're quite welcome, man. Thank you for having me as always. And, man, we've said nothing but good things about people again here. Maybe we should say something bad about somebody to generate some kind of publicity. What do you say? Do we have it between us to say anything bad about anybody?
Perhaps, I don't know. Do you have any opinions on Harry Rollins? Henry Rollins, I should say.
Yeah, right. Let me pile on with the
Kronos
from
Venom, yeah. But
and badmouth Henry Rollins. Even him, I got to say, man, he blew my mind when I saw him at Lollapalooza. I hadn't, as a kid, I went and saw him do his set, and I wasn't familiar with him at all. And I was like, who the hell is this dude, man? He looks crazy enough to kill me. I was in like 30th row, and I was scared of him.
Yeah, he's intense, but listen, he does his readings now, and people love him. I mean, you got to give props to Henry.
Yeah, well, unless you're the dude from Venom, and then you can't do that. Right?
Well, yeah, so, listen, I give props to Kronos from Venom for speaking up, because I'm sure at some point Henry's going to get on a plane and track him down somewhere. But hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, I guess, you and I will have to gracefully bow out on this episode as the guys who don't say anything bad again. Yeah. But, hey, thank you, Kronos from Venom, for representing.
For adding a little spice to the event. But, there you go. Heavy Montreal again, August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean Drapeau. Head over to melodicrockrecords.com. And if we want to find you... Oh, hey, and of course... stick around for the Purple album by Whitesnake. It comes out, I think, in May, I believe, right?
I think May 15 in Europe, May 19 States, I believe.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to hear in advance. Folks, you're gonna love it. It's kick-ass rock and roll. I mean, you know the songs, but you don't know them this way. And they're great. They're bloody great, really great.
Thanks so much, bro. I think we definitely heavied them up a bit, and the people that aren't familiar with it, like some of the Whitesnake fans really haven't heard this material, can look at it like, hey, man, this is a brand new Whitesnake album, and I think those that are familiar with the material can get off on hearing a different version of some really proven killer songs.
Yeah, like we said, in fact, before we started recording, Kiss did that on the Sonic Boom album. They had a special package where you could get another disc with some of the Kiss songs redone, and a lot of the Kiss fans, oh, well, what are they doing? But I was like, hey, dude, now I've got two versions of these great songs, so I'm into it. I'm full supporter of that kind of stuff. So there you go. Where can folks find you online?
They can always just go to my .com. I'll spell my name for everybody. Joel Hoekstra, JoelHoekstra.com. And you can link to all my social media stuff from there. And also, I should mention I'll be on that metal show this Saturday night, which airs at, I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on VH1 Classic, playing guitar. So, and that repeats, I think they repeat that show 12,000 times during the course of the week, I'm pretty sure.
You know what's bad about that show? They don't play it in Canada. Isn't that horrible? Somebody out there has to, in Canadian media, pick up that show, because it is a fantastic show. Whenever I go traveling to the States, I got to make sure that the hotel has VH1 Classic so I can see the show, but we need it in Canada.
Man, it's I think it's a guilty pleasure for every single musician I know.
Yes.
There's not one guy I don't know, out on tour, that doesn't say, when you're on the bus, when you're flipping through the guide and you see that metal show, everybody stops there and they all check it out. And it's great fun. And listen, Eddie Trunk has been fantastic to me, and has been a big believer in me and done a lot for me. So they're a bunch of great guys. Love those guys. So.
Yeah, Eddie, of course, is another big supporter of the scene that I like, which is all those 80s bands, all the bands, and he put together Winery Dogs, and gotta love Eddie. Anyway, so there you go. You can find me at Mitch Lafon on Twitter. You can also check me out on Facebook. There's a Facebook for the one-on-one site also. So there you go. No controversy in this one. We have insulted no one. Nobody has been called a fool.
You'd think I was Canadian, wouldn't you? I mean, it's my Midwestern roots. I believe that just leads me to say nothing but good. Eventually, I'll become a true New Yorker. I've been here long enough. So
there you go, and we'll find somebody to pick on. I can't think of anybody right now, but I'm sure somebody out there will cross us at some point. But hey, there you go.
Awesome, bro.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. We'll do this again soon, and thank you for listening.
All right. Thanks as always, brother.
Thank you.